Hello and welcome to Module 5 of EDC 672, Creating and Integrating Technology in the Classroom. This is the Wednesday module for the course, and in this module we'll be talking about creativity theorists, and in particular we'll be looking at three theorists and discussing ways in which we can utilize their work in the classroom with our students and with other teachers.
So let's begin with an overview of some of the theories from three prominent educators. We're going to talk about Howard Gardner, Teresa Amabile, and Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And that's I know that last one is a difficult one to pronounce, so it's on the screen below his name, and the way to pronounce it is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. We'll start with Howard Gardner. Howard Gardner is a Harvard University professor, and he is best known for his book Multiple Intelligences, where he outlines a theory of intelligences which at the time was very radical. It's come to be widely accepted in education, the idea being that each of us has multiple ways that we can excel and multiple ways where we can learn, and some of those ways, as a teacher, it's important for us to understand those ways of our students and understand which ways are most effective for our students. One thing that Gardner said that's kind of sums up his theory is very simply that anything that is worth teaching can be presented in many different ways. These multiple ways can make use of our multiple intelligences. And Gardner spoke about kinesthetic intelligence, mathematical intelligence, musical intelligence, and so forth. And in his work, it's very important to understand that just as we know as educators that all students are different in many, many ways, they also think differently and learn differently. And that's an important thing to keep in mind when we're developing lessons and units for our students. The next theorist is Teresa Amabile. Amabile is a professor also at Harvard in the School of Business, and her book that sort of gave her notoriety was called The Progress Principle, using small wins to ignite joy, engagement, and creativity at work. And she talks about creativity in a different way than Gardner. She talks about innate satisfaction that we derive from creativity, and how that is really what makes the difference. And a quote from her is, "The desire to do something because you find it deeply satisfying and personally challenging inspires the highest levels of creativity, whether it's in the arts, sciences, or business." And for her, it's really about motivation. Intrinsic motivation for students is what inspires creativity and what allows students to excel and create to their fullest potential. And finally, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who is a professor in California at Claremont Graduate University, and he wrote a book called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. And in his research, he talks about the mental and emotional state that learners find themselves in when they are most creative. And he talks about sort of what makes an optimal learning experience for a person and what makes us really be creative as opposed to not creative. And he defines flow this way. Flow is being completely involved in an activity for its own sake. The ego falls away. Time flies. Every action, movement, and thought follows inevitably from the previous one, like playing jazz. Your whole being is involved, and you're using your skills to the utmost. So you can see that there's some overlap between these three theorists, and of course we're just scratching the surface on these educators. Csikszentmihalyi's idea of flow has gained some prominence in education, and really, again, has to do with creating an environment for students where they can be most involved in their work, so that their intrinsic creativity is allowed to take root. So let's talk a little bit about creativity in the K-12 setting, and I want to discuss this in terms of some questions and some things for you to think about for when we meet in person. And really, this is just to kind of get you thinking. And if you would take a few minutes and maybe jot down some answers to these questions, no right or wrong answers, of course, just your thoughts. So the first one is, can creativity be taught? There are some theorists who think that it can, and some who think that it cannot. I fall into the camp of feeling that we can provide optimal experiences for students to foster their innate creativity. We can encourage them and provide opportunities for them to pursue their interests, which I think goes a long way towards fostering creativity. But you may feel differently, and that's something that we should talk about in class. What are the key components of creativity? So in the past, we maybe would think of creativity in terms of art or music or dance, but there are many, many ways that people can foster creativity. People can be creative with mathematics or creative with writing. So what are the components of creativity? Really, how would you define it? What does it mean for you as an educator to see creativity in your students? And once you have defined it for yourself, how are you supporting it? How is your instruction supporting creativity? Are you fostering creativity amongst your students, or how is your instruction stifling creativity? This is a really important self-reflection for you to do, for you to think about how your classroom is set up and how you are relating to your students. Are you helping them be creative or not? And that's something really that's worth your thinking about.
That completes this module overview. What I'd like to go over now is some activities for you to work on and to be prepared for the next session. First, please review all the content on the Wednesday tab on the course site. And think about a topic for your creativity lesson. We'll be discussing this more in class, but think about what you might want to focus on. Work on a rough draft. You don't have to do the actual lesson plan, but if you can just kind of sketch out some ideas, we're going to be spending some time in class working on that as well. And then we'll be doing some group activities on creativity in class when we meet together. That's the end of the Module 5 Wednesday overview video. Thank you, and see you in class.